pop4conservation.com. Ladies and gentlemen, that's where you want to go to support Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation fundraising efforts. Pop4conservation.com is where you can go to be a big winner. 80 winners, over $200,000 in prizes, vehicles, firearms, hunting and fishing packages. Again, 80 winners, over $200K in prizes. Pop4conservation.com, protecting our pursuits. Pop4conservation.com. Go there today to enter. Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Sportsman's Voice Roundup episode. This is a special episode. Being so close to the election, this will be our last opportunity to discuss pre-election items, and with that opportunity, wanted to highlight and revisit the ongoing work by CSF and our partners in Colorado concerning Proposition 127 and the opportunity in Florida by way of Amendment 2 for right to hunt and fish to become a part of the Florida Constitution would make them the 24th state in the union to have right to hunt and fish. So, not to take away from the other headlines that we normally cover here, I will tell you real quick, if you are a subscriber, you got the EPUB. If not, do go to congressionalsportsman.org, sign up for free. It's free. And if you don't want it to go to your main email, give us the email you have Walmart send your stuff to or whatever. But the point is, you're getting it. You have that opportunity, and it'll never miss your inbox, whatever one you provide. You're going to see stories like this week. Hundreds of sports people come together to rally against Colorado Prop 127. We're actually going to hear a little more about that in a minute. Proposed vessel speed rule in the Atlantic still pending. Wisconsin muzzleloader definition updated. Pennsylvania fishing license fee bill is headed to the governor's desk. South Carolina Legislative Sportsman's Caucus hosts successful sporting clays classic. So all those articles are up there available for you to dive into and read. But this week, we're going to start off in Colorado with our guest, Dan Gates. Dan's been basically the face of this whole thing. If you've seen him there with his trademark beard and CRWM cap out there on the socials, on the podiums, speaking on behalf of Coloradans against Prop 127. Barry Snell, who you guys have heard in the past talking about this as we've come through the process, getting closer here to November 5th. Invited, had technical issues, couldn't get him on, so you're just going to hear from Dan and I, mostly Dan on this. Then we're going to jump across the country to Florida, where we're joined by CSF Assistant Manager of the Southeast, Mark Lance, and All Florida's Executive Director, Travis Thompson, as we discuss the opportunity to bring right to hunt and fish to Florida, as I said here in the beginning. So those two items, special edition coming up. If you got friends and family in either one of these states, share this episode with them. Great deep dive on both subjects. We're dispelling myths on both sides, both parts of this conversation. We're bringing you facts. We're bringing you truth. We're going to tell you where on the ballots you can find these opportunities to vote the right way. Again, all that more. We're going to get into it. Let's catch up with Dan. Stand by. All right. We are here on, this will be the last Sportsman's Voice Roundup before election 2024 here. We welcome back in Dan Gates to give us an update out of Colorado. Prop 127. This will be the last we report on this unless there's something huge besides the issue. And today, as we record this on October 28th, early in-person voting has begun in Colorado. So All that and more. Let's get to Dan. He's going to update us on the issue there in the state, also on early voting and what you can do to be a part of that as a Colorado resident. Dan, welcome into the show.
Thanks again, Fred. I appreciate the opportunity. And it's, this is becoming like old hat for some of us that have spent a tremendous amount of time working on specific issues around the country. And it's becoming nauseating to the sense of you see how what extremes the opposition will go to lie and deceive and befuddle the general public into getting them to believe what they want them to believe, and hopefully, in this case, vote yes on Proposition 127, where we are trying to oppose that and get a no vote. And they're pulling out all the stops, and they have a fair amount of celebrity, quote unquote, support, which we can get into real briefly, which is to my displeasure. Yeah. But I tell you what, it's this is a neck and neck race. We've got multiple races here in Colorado that are going to be neck and neck that surround the wildlife industry. We got Proposition 127, as you and I mentioned. We have Ordinance 308 in the city and county of Denver, which is the fur ban, which proposes to take the display and the sell and trade and barter of fur products, including cowboy hats, fishing lures, and Native American crafts off the table to where they would become illegal. And then we have Ordinance 309 in the city and county of Denver, which is to ban the one slaughterhouse, a lamb slaughterhouse, which is the largest slaughterhouse for lamb production in the western United States. And it employs about 200 people, and it's been there for about 75 years. This is an attack on food and fiber and hunting and fishing and conservation. And these extremists are pulling out all the stops to turn around and try to get what they want, not only here, but in other states as well. Just so happens that Colorado's become the epicenter because of the wording of the language in these measures and how that would determine how wildlife is managed in the future.
Exactly right. We've obviously gotten into that pretty heavily in the past on what that means. And just, for the new listener for our show, if you're just tuning in, in short, the way Prop 127 is written, it's so ambiguous that, they come after the cats as trophy hunting, again, terribly defined. There is no real definition of that. But the problem is, legally speaking, you could take the cats out, insert wood duck, insert turkey, insert, whatever critter, and then you have precedent for the rest of the country, and it's terribly problematic. In that by itself, never mind what this could do to wildlife management and taking the authority away from the professionals at the state agency from the people of Colorado.
You're exactly right. And when you read the definition, the title language itself, and you talk about the definition about, the restrictions or the prohibitions or just stopping, there's a component in here that, what has resonated well enough with a lot of our followers. We talk about the actual definition, the way it's written, and it's, it says a change to the Colorado revised statutes concerning limits on hunting of mountain lions, bobcats, and lynx, and in conjunction therewith, restricting the hunting or killing of a mountain lion, bobcat, or lynx, subject to federal law, lynx to be between December 18th and December 31st. Now, this is stuff that they've attempted to try to get in there that we were able to get out. But when they start talking about releasing or discharging of a deadly weapon, they're talking about rifles, shotguns, pistols, muzzleloaders, and archery equipment, whether it's a longbow or a compound bow or a recurve bow or a crossbow. This is not just about mountain lions and bobcats. This is something where the general public needs to fully understand. By the language in the title, take bobcats and mountain lions out. They're defining the method of take. They're defining the pursuit and the stalking and intentionally killing. Those are hunting techniques, as you and I know. And while some guys go, oh, that's the mountain lion hunting ban or that's the bobcat trapping ban, nothing could be further from the truth that that's just what this is. This is not only a camel nose under the tent. I'm looking at it as about the first hump of the camel under the tent because of the way that this is worded so broadly. And these guys have stood by their guns saying that their opponents, us, are only trying to deceive the general public as well but I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The writing is on the wall. And when the people are voting, which they've already started casting their ballots, as you mentioned, uh, actually started when the ballots first went out on October 11th. And when the people started doing that, we see right now a significant concern amongst individuals who have already cast their vote, who are thinking about casting their vote, or not sure if they should cast their vote on the language itself. And I think that that's going to be, I personally think that's going to be the demise of the proponents of the measure, because they got what they wanted, but they're not going to get what they want.
Yeah. As far as the ballot goes, you mentioned the paper ballots, some of the mail-in early voting starting the middle of the month, where we're at today, in-person early voting. I don't know if you've seen it, so forgive me for putting you on the spot. As far as placement on the ballot, because they've already been printed, if you're going in to vote on this issue, you're going to vote, the major party ticket, do the down ballot stuff. But often what happens with all these ballot initiatives or these props is that they get buried, or there's just so much, and there are multiple page ballots that people just get kind of overwhelmed by looking at all of it and all the small print. Do we know where this is placed on the ballot and where people can go to find it and just kind of expedite it if we're trying to get this thing shut down?
I filled my ballot out last night, and because of the amount of ordinances and constitutional amendment changes proposed, and the statutory changes that are proposed, plus the legislative side of things, the presidential election, ours is fairly substantial, but not near as substantial as what it is in like Denver and Boulder and Fort Collins, because of the amount of ordinances and ballot initiatives that they have.
Okay.
And so ours, particularly, Prop 127 was the last on the list on the bottom right-hand corner. And then you had to flip the page over for the remaining statutory or amendment change proposals. And so ours is a complete giant page and a half, essentially, front and back. From my understanding, the ones that I've talked to that have had their ballots delivered in Denver, their back one is almost as full as what the front and back of ours is combined.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so many of these other cities and municipalities, it might be a trash ordinance, or maybe it's a tax that on a local deal that's added on top of what they get to do, or maybe it's county commissions at a larger scale. Those are things that, to your point, Fred, the burdensome effort of people to sit down and check a few boxes when they think they're going to vote on Harris and Trump and maybe a couple others, they open this up and go, holy crap. I mean, either I'm not educated on this, I don't want to be educated on this, or I will never get educated on this. And I think that the burdensome side of voter fatigue is something that could go in our favor. I went through very meticulously last night, and of course I've been looking at it and filling in a few things here and there. Some of the things that I had to research on my own through the Blue Book. And I think that most states have a Blue Book, and that Blue Book specifically lines out and explains each one of the measures and each one of the statutory or constitutional proposed changes. And, I'm sitting here right now, and the Blue Book that we've got is 109 pages, to be able to explain the stuff that's on the ballot. This is a 109-page document, actually 110 if you include the back page. But it goes through and it talks about the judicial performance evaluations, and it goes through and talks about titles and text of each one of the ballot measures. And then it goes through and has a complete breakdown of each one. And for instance, if you look at Proposition 127, that is our concern, it gives you a breakdown, but it's 2.5-page breakdown. It's just not several different things. So if anybody really wants to become educated about the ballot initiatives, they really need to take a look at the Blue Book, because not everybody is fully aware of, the nuances or the caveats to each one of these ballot measures. And what I would say is that if people don't know what they're voting for, doesn't matter whether it's about the gun tax, or maybe it's the abortion deal, or maybe it's the taxes, by the time that they get to something that they don't know after the stuff that they maybe were concerned about or that dramatically affects them, are they liable not to check a box? Are they liable to check a yes box? Are they liable to check a no box? And I have to think that with seven statutory proposals and 7 constitutional amendment proposals, that has to go in our favor. And when you look in the city and county of Denver, we believe that Ordinance 308 and Ordinance 309, which are both domestic animal and wildlife related issues, we believe that those can be lumped into the same category as Proposition 127 by the general voter, because you have fur, which is animals, and you have hunting, which is animals, then you have domestic livestock production, which is animals. And I believe, that the majority of the people, are going to look at those and if they vote for one in the yes category, they're likely to vote for all 3. And if they're going to vote no for one, they're likely to vote no for all 3, just because of their particular morals or their values or their ethics and the logistical side of things. Now, that might not be solid straight across the board, but I think the majority of people are probably going to fall into those categories. So we believe that 308 and 309 actually help us by being on the ballot in the city and county of Denver, because those people are the ones that are going to be the target audience for us, and they get to vote on our stuff, the statewide stuff, and the city and county stuff, whereas the general voter only gets to vote on the statewide stuff.
You guys recently held a rally at the Capitol. Look, for as far as from social, very well attended. Seemed to be some great energy and enthusiasm. How has the relationship with the Colorado State Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus, Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, and Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management (CRWM) been on this, and speak to the relationship there and the effort?
Well, back when Andy Traherne with CSF was our guy and lived in Colorado, Andy was working with Representative Jim Wilson and Representative Jenny Arndt, and trying to prop up the Sportsmen's Caucus at a higher level. And he and I worked together. Andy and I are great friends. So now I call him a traitor now because he moved back to your guys' country, and then he left CSF, and now I think he's working for Capital One, or I don't know, maybe selling pizzas on the street corner or something. But I wish him the best on everything. But Andy helped formulate what we have today and what we're doing to be able to prop this up in a capacity that shows by the efforts that we're able to pull off at the Capitol. Now, when Traherne was here, we would typically get 30 or 40 people at the Capitol, and we were trying to do caucuses, and we tried to get a little bit of electronic component into it, which is well beyond my capabilities, but I'm becoming more versed in it. When Andy left and Ellery Tucker Williams took his spot, and Ellery was living in Idaho, but she and I became great friends, and she came down and elk hunted with us and spent some holidays with us, and now she's working for the Department of Idaho Fish and Game. And but with her input after Andy left, and then COVID hitting, and then us being forced to turn around and do everything virtual, literally we went from 20 or 30 people to 70, 80, 90, 100 people. And it wasn't uncommon to have 125 or 150 people, especially on specific issues, or you had big presenting agendas and so forth. And then we started doing the Sportsman's Day at the Capitol about that same time, where we, every April, with the Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus, with CSF support, we feed wild game at the east lawn of the Capitol, and we're getting somewhere between 400 and 700 people to that event. Most of the legislators, even if they're on the Colorado Voters for Animals caucus, they come out to get wild game dogs off of us that day and then take them back in and eat them inside. But that's built up the effort, at least from the Capitol standpoint, and being able to have a central meeting point and a collaborative effort to make sure that what we do, we're doing the best that we could possibly do. And so with CRWM, we're the only organization in the state of Colorado that's got full-time lobbying representation for sportsmen and women. It doesn't pedestalize us, but it doesn't bastardize any of our co-partners that we work with, the Colorado Wildlife Conservation Project. that you're aware of that Barry sits on, CSF is on. But because we're a C4, we were able to turn around and do some things in conjunction with and in addition to our partners on the CWCP. And then it just kind of escalated to the point where when we say we want to do something at the Capitol, whether it's getting people together to testify or have Sportsmen's Day at the Capitol, or a rally like what we did on October 18th to oppose Proposition 127, we come out in full force. And it shows the care and the concern of Colorado sportsmen and women. And fast forwarding to October 18th, I mean, we had a really good turnout. It was a cool, somewhat blustery day. And we still had roughly 350 people that came out with their dogs. And we had representation from probably 25 or 30 different organizations. We had keynote speakers that were politicians on both sides of the aisle. We had elected officials from different counties. We had wildlife scientists and experts that were speaking. I put a little bit of a finality to it. But people came together not because of only Proposition 127, but because we had built this collective component together to where we could all say, we know where we're going to the Capitol, we know what we're trying to do, and we feel comfortable doing it as opposed to just trying to get people to show up one time as something that they've never been able to participate in. So the press was there. We had some good social media components that came out of that. We had the enemy there, the extremist side. They came in. We've got pictures of them holding up our vote no on 127 signs because they wanted to blend in like they were some sort of secret agent. And Barry spoke, and it was a really good turnout, but it shows that Coloradans are unified. And it wasn't a houndsman event. And I've said this in some of the social spots. It wasn't a houndsman event. It wasn't a trapping event. It was a sportsman event to help support science-based wildlife management, the managing agency, the North American model. Ducks Unlimited was there. Muley Fanatics was there. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation was there. The Colorado Bowhunters was there. You name it, they were there. And they were in support of defeating Proposition 127 because they all see the writing on the wall by the language in the title.
If nothing else, if this goes our way here next Tuesday and, we wake up Wednesday morning and we're like, okay, this worked, it's not going away. And this isn't new, right? But I use the example of before I was a commissioner for New Hampshire Fish and Game. I went to a hearing. They were attacking beaglers. We got a nice tradition up here in New Hampshire, some beagle clubs that chase bunnies and hares and stuff like that. Not a lot of people, but it was a soft, easy target for the anti-crowd, and that's what they were coming after, the beagles. And Sportsmen came, and it wasn't a beagle issue, and I stood up there myself, and I kind of got emotional about it. My voice got raised, but I'm going back probably almost a decade. I was just looking around at all the people I knew, and then a new face. I was like, I'm a turkey guy, a deer guy. This doesn't matter. It's that you have your own little niche communities within the community. Like, we all have to stand each other up. And fast forward almost 10 years, here we are in 2024. And I hope this huge spotlight that's been put on Colorado has shook the entire conservation community to its core. Here in the lower 48, up in Alaska, the whole continent where this stuff happens naturally. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing can be taken for granted. And I'm just hoping that this limelight has woke some people up. Like, it's coming to a state near you, to your community. It's not just a Western issue. It's not just a small liberal state issue, as they tend to lean here in the Northeast and the Northwest. It's coming.
It's coming. It's been here. And now I think that they're realizing that they, at least in our state for now, they've awoken a sleeping giant. They knew that we were a formidable opposition because of what we had accomplished and what we had thwarted in the past 12, 15 years. Granted, we've lost stuff in the past here too. I mean, 1992, we lost bear hunting in the spring with hounds and bait. 1996, we lost foothold traps, body gripping devices, and cable restraint devices. That was a constitutional amendment. Then we held them at bay, no pun intended on the hound deal, but we held them at bay until 2020 on the wolf issue. And we as CRWM didn't specifically get into the wolf issue because we were fighting bobcat and lion issues on our own through the Parks and Wildlife Commission and through the General Assembly. And so when 2020 came along, you can have too many cooks in the kitchen, which could happen at different levels. And so we opted to take a step back and let everybody else do what they were doing, because we were still the only ones that had full-time representation at the Capitol. We were the ones that were dealing with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission. We were sitting on multiple boards and committees, and we couldn't undertake financially or intestinally, the intestinal fortitude side, the wolf deal as well. Now, that being said, hindsight, maybe we should have, maybe we shouldn't, but if we would have, we might have drained our financial resources and our human resources to the point that maybe we would have lost lions and bobcats then, as opposed to kicking the can down the road. And so you're well aware of, Fred. I mean, the best line of defense is an offense that is victorious. And so while we were offensively defending the bobcat and mountain lion deal in 2019, 20, 21, and 22, the wolf deal came around and our comrades in arms weren't able to keep that one at bay. So we've got wolves, but we're just trying to right the ship when it comes to the the perception. Early in the morning, apologize.
No, I hear you.
The perception of what we're having to deal with on a grand scale. And so we honestly believe the way things have gone and what we've been able to accomplish collectively as a community. I'm not just saying CRWM, I'm not saying me, I'm not saying our team, but collectively to stick our neck out, and then somebody or some organization like what we become be the tip of the spear to help rally the troops, because we're a C4. The other organizations in our coalitions are not. They're a C6 or they're a C3. We've got professional representatives. We got a variety of different individuals that bring a lot of expertise, that are former CPW staff and Division of Wildlife staff. However, you can only do some things with the tax status, the charitable contribution side of what you've got. And so when we formulated the C4, I think it surprised our enemy substantially. It surprised them to the point that they didn't think that we were going to be able to put up an effort. And then when we were victorious for so many issues over a 7-year period, even though we'd been fighting all this stuff since 2007, they didn't think that we were well prepared enough to do a ballot initiative, or they wouldn't have done what they did. And they brought in the big guns from the Animal Welfare Action, for the Institute for a Humane Economy. I mean, it's all Wayne Pacelli stuff. It's all Humane Society of the United States, components, even though HSUS, coincidentally enough, has not played in this particular proposition. They've not funded it. They've not supported it. They've not came out and they haven't condemned it, but they haven't condoned it either. And the reason being is because they know that anytime you're going to put something with Wayne Pacelli, that's not probably good for their long-term goals because of his past, why he left HSUS, what his livelihood and demeanor is of sportsmen and women, and trying to stop it all. So HSUS isn't even part of this. I've had people come out and go, well, HSUS. No, well, HSUS is not part of this. The former CEO of HSUS is. But HSUS as a whole is not. The state organization of HSUS, the national organization of HSUS, they've not helped fund this. They've not helped support it. And I think that shows what we've done as a industry, as a community here in Colorado, because they came out, HSUS has come out and said, oh, maybe we ought to be able to turn around and just step back and let these guys take it on, because win, lose, or draw, there's things that we need to do on our own in Colorado. And to do that, we need to make sure that we hold our team together, we hold our resources close, and that we do what we need to do, because we're going to have to go back to the drawing board after this is done and over with on Prop 127.
So I'm not trying to read tea leaves too deeply, but I hear a couple things there, and correct me if I'm off. One, a deep-pocketed organization like HSUS is not throwing money at this. That, to me, says they think it's a loser on their end, and that they're playing a much longer game for something else. So if they're not dedicating them the funds here, does that mean they're anticipating it not going their way, or am I just being too Pollyannish on it?
Well, I don't know if it's anticipating that not going their way. I think that they believe, and this is inside baseball here, but they believe that this is not in their best interest based upon what they've been able to accomplish, capitalize on here in Colorado. And while they might not be sad if this was to go through, they don't like the tactics and they don't like the strategy and they don't like the mannerisms. Is what I mean. There's been a significant creation of obstruction and disruption through this whole process, not only from the governor's office on down to the Department of Natural Resources and Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the interior working mechanisms with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission, and then these other organizations and the agriculture community, what's the Livestock Association, the Farm Bureau, the cattlemen's, the wool growers. HSUS knows that they have to work with some of these individuals on some occasion. And I believe that they think that there's maybe an attempt to burn Rome down, and there won't be anything left for them to turn around and build any of those relationships or create any of those bridges back if this passes. If it doesn't pass, I think that they feel that by them sitting on the sidelines, and this is me putting words into their mouth, but by them sitting on the sidelines, they can actually come out and say, hey, we're willing to work with you guys on this, or hey, we're willing to consider this, or hey, we'd like to have a conversation. I honestly believe that, because if we are victorious and Proposition 127 fails by a no vote, the only ones that are left standing to work with any one of those user groups would be HSUS. Everybody else would have already put their name into this hat and put money in it and slung mud and done the name calling and done the attacks and the assaults and the harassments and the threats. And but HSUS has sat on the sidelines for that. And I think that, giving credit to the state managers, the state directors of HSUS here in Colorado, I think that that's a smart move on their behalf, because they know that they still have things to accomplish on their bucket list. And they're not going to do it if they burn all the bridges with somebody else, especially in a losing effort.
Sure. Yeah. So not going away, the proverbial fox and hen house situation likely still applies here and definitely going forward. Well, this is it. We're in the home stretch here. So we covered the ballot. We kind of talked about where folks looking proactively to find Prop 127 is on the paper. More likely than not, go find it. Check that no box. And you got to get out and vote, man. That's been the drumbeat here for a long time, and this is crap or get off the pot. That's where we're at.
Yeah, it is.
You got to get up, and with the early voting, it makes it. Look, my personal issues with the way the world's gone or our country's gone with this stuff aside, it's there. Take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I haven't looked over the weekend, but I think somewhere in the neighborhood of around 35 to 40% of our registered voters have already cast their ballots. And the interesting thing is that, in Colorado, essentially we're about a 50-50 state. And I say 50-50 because 50% of us are unaffiliated and 27% are Democrats and 23% are Republicans. And so you kind of got that in the wind crowd, that packing peanut in the windstorm mentality, to where, depending on what side of the fence it lands on, you might get some Republican, a little bit leaning right mentalities out of the unaffiliated, or you might get some Democrat, more liberally minded, leaning left, unaffiliated. But I got to get into, briefly, the fact that there's a little bit of an overreach, because there's so much that are affecting or could affect people's lives. And I'm going to give you some statistics real quick. We had some of our counterparts that have been working the streets and hitting up people on the streets. They set up booths, they get permits, and they go set up booths. And Brant McDuff actually started this. Brant from the East Coast came out here for a couple of weeks and spent a few weeks while we were getting ready to prepare for the rally and so forth. But he has since left. But some of our members and supporters have taken up the flag, and so they've went and set these tables up. And the sign on the front of the table says something to the effect of, "Ask a conservationist why you should vote no on 127." An interesting number that out of and this is in Boulder. This is downtown Boulder at Pearl Street, the day of the CU Buffs Cincinnati football game this past weekend on Saturday. Just very briefly, I mean, this is the update of the crew, but they talked to 78 individuals that actually came up to the booth. Now, this is in Denver, or in Boulder. 78 individuals came up to the booth. 71 of those individuals said they are voting no or have voted no on Prop 127. 3 said they were voting yes, and 4 said they weren't sure yet. About 2 weeks before that, I had a conversation with a bunch of young women in downtown Denver that were all business women, made between $60,000 and $150,000 a year. And overwhelmingly, about 77% of those women indicated that they weren't going to support Proposition 127. And they even asked the question of why the hell are we even allowed to vote on stuff like this? I mean, these are educated, upper-level, downtown Denver voters. And it makes me wonder, I mean, that's a very small sampling, but it goes kind of hand in hand with the research that we've done at multiple levels here in Colorado through this campaign, through the 308 campaign on the fur ban, through the 309 campaign on the slaughterhouse, and even information that was collected through the Colorado Wildlife Council to try to get the pulse of people's feelings about the benefits of hunting and fishing. And so, you know, wolves, I said this in one of my social posts that we just did, wolves have become the topic of discussion at so many levels in Colorado. It's almost in the news every single day, and it has been for the last 4 years in some capacity, but specifically since last December when we reintroduced wolves. And, you know, we voted on it in 2020. We went through the working groups. We did all the stuff. But it's in the news to where people see the diabolical conundrum that was created off of a public referendum to do a reintroduction of a threatened or endangered species. The first time in history. I mean, no other state has even tried to accomplish that, and our dumbasses are the first that got to be first of everything under Governor Polis, especially when it comes to wildlife and natural resources, you know. But to see the change in mentality, if that comes to fruition on Election Day, I think that you're going to see a monumental effort to where we can say we planted our flag in the sand. We got support from every single state. We got support from 95% of the organizations. We got support from people that hunt Colorado or don't hunt Colorado. We've got support from residents and non-residents. We got support from houndsmen and non-houndsmen. And I think that if this comes and goes in our favor, you're going to see the antis back up and go, holy crap, we need to modify our strategy and playbook because we didn't know we were going into the buzzsaw. And I will tell you, the last poll that we did, and it's not any big secret, but the last poll that we did indicated that it was around 41% no, 39% yes, and 1 in 5 or 20% were undecided. That's a pretty damn good mark from where things have happened in the past when you would look at things like the bear issue or something where the general public was not well organized, not well educated, and did not have a defense for the sportsmen to turn around and come out and defeat Initiative 10 back in 1992. Times have changed, and we turned the playbook on that, and it's been a monumental effort, and we're proud to be part of it.
Well, you know, obviously at CSF, you know, we constantly say this, and it bears truth here is that these issues are nonpartisan. So, you know, people that expect a certain political persuasion to lean one way or another, like this is a safety issue. Like moms and dads care if their kids are potentially going to get attacked by a big cat or a small cat, or just they're going out to recreate and hike, and they don't even hunt or fish or recreational shoot, but they like walking in the outdoors. And hey, man, I'd like to do so safely without worrying about a damn lion jumping up beside me from behind me and killing me or my kids. So issues of safety, issues of, to that your point, your example with the one lady there in downtown Denver. This is something we get to vote on. That doesn't, you know, I guess in her ignorant way, like she automatically trusts the professionals, and that is the overwhelming message here is to, yeah, man, trust the professionals. They're hired for a reason. The authority needs to remain with the state agency and trust in them. Final words. I've taken up most of all the time we allocated and then some. So I want to return you to your morning.
No, I appreciate that. And I would just say if people know people in Colorado, pick up the phone or text them and tell them how important this is to you as an individual to vote no on 127. And if you're coming to Colorado, and this doesn't pass, make sure that when you go into a sporting goods store or a ski shop or spend some time in a hotel or whatever, bring it up that we have to be part of this conversation regularly. It has to be done in other years and other times and other months and weeks besides when the ballot initiative is coming up. We have a plan of action for a victory and what we're going to do after this. God forbid we lose. We don't know what that plan of action entails at this point in time. But if we win, we have a plan of action immediately on the 6th of November, what we're doing and where we're going. And we have a Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting that will vote on 9 days after the election. We'll be voting on the East Slope Mountain Land Management Plan. If this passes, there's no need to vote on it. That's 2 losses in a month. If we are victorious, then when they vote on that 9 days afterwards, that will pass in our favor. That's 2 victories in a month. This is a step not only in the right direction, but it would almost be a step falling off a cliff if we lose. And we're just looking forward to making sure that every single person, entity, organization, state that has helped to get us this far and put us across the finish line realizes that it's not just centric to Colorado. And we are building a playbook and a roadmap along with our partners to make sure that we can prop up something that happens in Ohio, or we can prop up something that happens in Texas, or we can prop up something that happens in Nevada. And it takes all of us to be able to do that. And if we all think that we're going to be able to rely on any one specific organization, then we're misinformed. If we think that we're going to be able to do it by sitting on our laurels for 364 days out of the year until we go check a box, we're misinformed. And if we don't figure out a way to plan proactively on the offense next year and the year down the road, and 2 years after that, then I think we're misinformed. So appreciate your guys' time. Appreciate your willingness to engage and your expertise, but we're not in this just to say we're in it. We've been victorious in everything that we've done since 2007, specifically since 2017, and this is not a plan of action for us to lose on this.
No, and obviously, the partnership is important. It's appreciated, and working with all, for CSS part, working with all in-state partners and coalescing around items like this. And I think we want the victory too. We all do, and we're stronger for it. So again, we're recording this on October 28th. This episode will drop this Wednesday, the 30th. All that to say, I'm looking at Denver specifics forecast. When this does drop, Denver, you're expected to get some mixed precipitation, snow, rain, maybe some ice. So, after that, you got Thursday, Friday. I'm assuming Saturday you can in-person vote, maybe not. But check the weather. Looks like some nice stretch of weather coming up through the weekend. And then on Election Day in Denver, you're looking at a raw 57-degree and rainy day. So take advantage of the early voting. Get out there. Do so in the sunshine. Don't wait in lines. And make your voice be heard.
Appreciate it, Fred. Look forward to maybe getting back on with a positive message after the victory and the opponent's agony of defeat.
I'd very much look forward to that. Thanks for all your hard work, Dan. We appreciate it. Thanks for your time. And, again, hope to catch up here soon with some good news.
Thanks, Fred. Aim small, miss small.
All right. Joining us now on the program, we're joined by Assistant Manager in the Southeast for Congressional Sportsmen Foundation, Mark Lance, and the Executive Director for All Florida, Travis Thompson. Gentlemen, thanks so much for making the time here on short notice. How are you guys?
Doing well, Fred. Appreciate you having me on.
Sure. Travis, how are you?
Doing great down here, man. We got some nice weather down in Florida, so I'm enjoying being outside and working through election season.
Yeah, well, we're almost there. We are in the home stretch. I have you both on here to talk about an exciting opportunity for Floridians in Amendment number 2, the possibility of amending Florida's Constitution for right to hunt and fish. Certainly exciting to even think about, to have there on the ballot. And put it to a vote for the people. Travis, well, first, let me start with Mark. Mark, take us through the process here. CSF's involvement from jump, working with in-state partners, working with all Florida, and kind of take it over to Travis to where we're at current day.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Fred. Yeah, so going back to 2023 when the amendment language was originally drafted, CSF had a pretty heavy hand in getting the language in a good spot, along with our partners with International Order of Teddy Roosevelt, Travis with All Florida, Safari Club International, National Shooting Sports Foundation, and so many other in-state and other national conservation partners. And we helped shepherd it through the legislative process in 2023. Long story short, it passed. Travis, I think it was 155-1 when it was all said and done, which is a huge win, and it speaks to the strong bipartisan support that the amendment has and that hunting and fishing has in general. So once we got HJR 1157 passed and got it officially placed on the ballot, we've been working alongside the partners that I previously mentioned, and have been encouraging folks to get out and support Amendment 2 and vote on Amendment 2.
Travis, what's the process been like from your side, leading the way here on in-state and working with Mark and all parties involved, getting us to this very crucial home stretch?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a learning curve for me, but CSF, as Mark mentioned, has been with us side by side with us for a long time. In fact, I think it was Chris Horton at CSF about 5 or 6 years ago who was the first person to ever mention to me the idea of doing a right to fish and hunt in Florida, which is kind of where, the genesis of all this came from Chris. We were talking, man, I forget what the issue was. We were talking about something, and he's like, man, do y'all have a constitutional right to fish and hunt? If not, you need to get one. And then, like Mark mentioned, we've worked with all those partners, particularly IOTR, has been instrumental in helping lead that charge. But CSF, without you guys, I don't think we get the language right. I don't think we get to where we are today. So it's definitely been a team effort all the way around. There's no one person you can say, man, because of them we got it done. But there's a whole lot of people you can say played a part in how we got to where we are right now. So proud of it.
And I think what's important about something like this that is extremely positive for our community and for the public at large, whether they know it or not, is that this is not just kind of done overnight. You don't just have a bill sponsor come in and be like, hey, you're my guy in my district. I need a right to hunt and fish. Can you hook me up? And the guy's like, well, yeah, sure, not knowing. This is a multi-step process that takes significant resources, financially, of course, and otherwise. You're not just going to do this in one session. I think that needs to be said. There is a long game here that we have to get right, because if we don't, we dig ourselves in a hole that it's kind of hard to get out of for quite a few election cycles, no?
Yeah, so Fred, to your question about how it's a multi-year process, we actually, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, we got lucky in that in 2023 when this was first originally proposed, we were able to get it through during the first legislative session of actually trying. So, I mean, over the course of, since Travis brought it up, over the course of 5 to 6 years, those conversations have been had. But a lot of hard work went into that legislative session in 2023 to get it into a good spot and onto the ballot.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is true for a lot of states, but we had a fortuitous bounce. We had a lot of groundwork laid, and again, we had a lot of teammates come together at the same time and say, hey, we want to aggressively pursue this and get after it. And man, we're also looking at the pressure, the potential of potentially seeing a threshold change for passage in Florida in the next 2 to 6 years. So going from a 60% threshold to a 67% threshold. So there's also some urgency around, we're going to get this done. We need to get this done now. And I'm sure you guys both know, but Florida's changing. It's every day because so many people are moving here. So there's a lot of pressure for us to try to get this done ASAP.
Yeah, especially from my area of the country in the Northeast. The snowbirds have, I think, become permanent residents for one reason or another. But yeah, you're right. There is mass in-country immigration into that one state. It's been pretty wild to watch, probably since the early days of COVID, or as we started getting through that. Again, for whatever reasons, that's not what we're here to talk about. But yeah, demographics are changing, and you're right. Strike while the iron's hot. And you guys are lucky that the groundwork took multiple years to get, but the infrastructure seems to be in place, and now you're able to execute on it. So get to the numbers. Where are we at? As we're recording this, it's October 28th, so we're second Monday, I guess. There's one more Monday before November 5th here, but this is our final show, as it were, before November 5th.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say, the latest polling that I've put eyes on Amendment 2 in Florida has it around, give or take, 67%. Travis, I don't know if you're seeing similar numbers there or not.
Yeah, so that's really close to what we're seeing down here. Obviously, it depends on how you take polling, how you view polling, and the trends are good. But we are fighting tooth and nail, and it's been really an interesting dynamic to fight through the process and watch some of the animal rights extremists permeate to where we've even had their talking points regurgitated to us by fishermen and hunters in our state, which shows the necessity of this amendment, because man, is bad. And I mean, you're just talking about straight up made up stuff. So I'm optimistic, but I'm also fighting tooth and nail to let's get this over the finish line together.
So great segue into what I want to get to next is exactly that. The fact checking here. All Florida put out some great infographics a little while back, dispelling the myths versus the facts. And I'll just hit you with this first one. Amendment 2 will impact private property rights. Fact or fiction?
Absolutely fiction, man. But that was rooted in the initial draft of the language. Had the sentence in there about trespassing laws, and the legislature and the lawyers that reviewed that at the state said, that was surplusage language and was already protected. Nothing's going to impact private property rights in Florida. They're protected under Article 1, Section 2 of the Florida Constitution, and it's completely unnecessary to put in there. So that's a myth that was created by the animal rights activists. They were like, hey, there's a place we can create some confusion. And I think you can look at all the landowners that support this, because they understand how important hunting is to conservation and to operations they may run on their properties. Like it's a no-brainer. It doesn't impact private property rights in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and it's important to note too that 23 other states currently have right to hunt and fish amendment within their state constitution, and just in Mississippi and Alabama and several other southern states in particular, they've got language that mirrors almost exactly what Florida has proposed on the ballot too. And you don't have people that are just running around and hunting and fishing on private property in Mississippi under the basis of, well, I have a constitutional right to hunt and fish, so I can go wherever to do those activities. That's just not the case. It's not happening.
Next one. This will be used to expand into state parks and wildlife preserves. Fact or fiction?
Rooted in, we had a fiasco in Florida recently with the state parks where they wanted to put golf courses and pickleball courts in and stuff. And I don't know anybody in the conservation space that was supportive of that idea. But again, the animal rights activists saw an opportunity to kind of shoehorn something together and put that out there in the water supply. Hunting's not taking place in state parks in the state of Florida. The state pretty tightly regulates that. That's against administrative code already. And even this constitutional amendment, like that's not gonna, we do nothing, and we'll get to that in a second, I'm sure, but we do nothing to remove FWC's authority. In fact, it's reiterated in the amendment like it is in all the other states. So there's nothing that's going to jeopardize hunting occurring in a place where it's not appropriate for hunting to occur.
This is a power grab by commercial fishing entities from foreign countries. Gotta be true. That's nothing but sarcasm if the audience didn't catch it.
Yeah, I laughed when I first saw that one, because like in the free state of Florida, where we can't have TikTok on our phones, at the colleges and universities, we're going to let China come in and fish in our waters, and the legislature approved it. Like, so crazy someplace else, but you know how it is. Stuff gets feed and runs around. I think the biggest indicator that that's not true is a video you guys shared recently from FWC, where they talk about how this is in no way impacting commercial fishing regulations, the net bans, etc. And then you look at the groups that are supporting it, like CCA Florida and American Sport Fish Association. And, this has nothing to do with commercial fishing. This is about a public right to be able to hunt and fish. So again, it's kind of a silly, some of these I can't help but laugh at.
And that one in particular. A couple more on these, and then we'll kind of get back to the discussion. But Amendment 2 will be used to bring back the black bear hunt.
Yeah, this is probably Mark's favorite, because we love talking about black bears in Florida. But The strongest evidence against that is the last black bear hunt occurred without Amendment 2. FWC is already empowered to turn black bear hunting on or off. Black bear hunting is considered as part of the black bear management plan in the state of Florida. So if and when they deem it appropriate to hunt bears based on science, social science, whatever else, a black bear hunt will occur or won't occur. It's completely separate from whether or not Amendment 2 passes or not.
Traditional methods will bring back animal torture.
I don't even know what to do with that one, man. It's so absurd because, again, Sentence 2 tells you that FWC is going to have time, place, manner restrictions on all on this right. No different than you can't go into a crowded movie theater and yell fire, and exercise, call your right to free speech. This doesn't do anything to reset their authority or their ability to administer. Traditional means what we're able to hunt with today. You use traditional methods to go hunting today. That's your gun, that's your bow and arrow, that's your fly rod, that's your spinning reel. That's traditional methods. The rhetoric around that one's also comical.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly there's a underlying anti-trapping sentiment there as well, and that's just some of the lowest hanging fruit, often the most maligned part of our community when it comes to wildlife management, but the most scrutinized and most regulated part of our community. So there's a whole lot of hypocrisy in that, but an easy scare tactic nonetheless. The last and I think most important fact versus fiction here, there are no threats to hunting and fishing rights in the state of Florida.
Man, I think you can look at the opposition and some of the rumors, narratives, et cetera, that they've put out, and you can see where those threats are. I mean, they are here and they are very apparent in Florida. CSF has been a tremendous partner with us, even in what I call the death by 1,000 cuts threats, which is not the giant overt, we want to close all hunting or fishing, but we want to close this fishing pier. We want to close this catch and release fishery. We want to close this area for hunting. We want to close that area for hunting. We want to develop this so that you can't hunt near that. Like, we see these pressures every day, and you guys well know fishing and hunting are conservation policy tools. They are massive tools in the tool belt for keeping the wild stuff wild. And in a state growing like the state of Florida, it's almost absurd that those are talking points being used by some of these animal rights extremist groups and picked up by some environmental groups, when in reality, hunting and fishing are what's going to keep our green spaces green and keep our wild spaces wild and allow us, we got a lot of endangered species. We got a lot of invasive species, but like our panthers, our gopher tortoises, our scrub jays, our grasshopper sparrows, the places you see those are places you're able to hunt and fish. So critically important, and anybody talking about, that there's no threats to hunting and fishing in Florida has not spent any time working in conservation policy here, because they're readily apparent, as Chris and Mark can attest to.
Does Florida have early voting? If so, has it begun?
Yes, so early voting, at the time of this recording, early voting has been going on for about a week. Seeing a huge turnout.
Is that mail-in or is that in person?
So we've got mail-in ballots and we have early in-person voting. I think it's a 14-day period, depending on the counties you're in. And I know some counties are lagging a little bit because they were hurricane impaired. So in those counties, they can get actually an executive order or something to that effect where they can extend it all the way through election day. But in my county where I live, I think it's 13 days of early voting is open.
Yeah, because that early voting is supposed to stop 3 days, I think, before I read. And again, to your point with Milton and Helena, feel bad, I can't get the H name right. But the last two hurricanes, you're right, they got the exemptions there. You're able to, so I guess my point to that is, why wait until Tuesday when you can take care of business now? You never know what the weather is going to be like in Florida. Chances are it's going to thunderstorm in the afternoon. So why stand out on the line on Tuesday in the the afternoon thunderstorm when you can just go get it done now? And as this podcast drops on Wednesday, the 30th, and you're hearing this, go out and get it done before the weekend. Just knock it out. It's that easy, and less lines and less cumbersome for you in the process. It's not the best system, but it's what's available to you now, so take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, early voting, where my county in Florida, early voting is a really convenient process. You can go to any precinct in the county, and they do a really good job. I haven't heard of anybody waiting more than 20, 25 minutes, but there's been a really good turnout as well. So it's really encouraging to it kind of just distributes that election day pressure a little bit. So absolutely, please go get it done.
Yeah. Same question I posed to Dan Gates out in Colorado as we deal with Proposition 127 out there. if you've had a look at the ballot, where does this fall on the ballot? And I know probably by county and district, it's going to vary depending on different initiatives and like dog catcher and funds for radio communications for your fire department. But generally, where is this falling on the ballot so people that are going can go look for it and vote for Amendment 2? Because obviously, it's, you got the federal stuff, top of the ticket, down ticket, all your congressional seats and things like that. But it can be long, and people get bored fatigued by the time they get to the end of it, not knowing all the information around all these things. But if you can do your president, VP, all the popular stuff, and then go find Amendment 2, where is it on the ballot? How can people find it?
Yeah, it is pretty far down the ballot this year, and we have 6 amendments, so we're at the top of the amendments list. But it's a pretty packed out ballot, so it's probably going to be on the back for most of you. And it's down there a ways, but go find it. It's Amendment 2, and one of the neat things about this amendment, and I've talked to Luke Hilgeman at IOTR about this, and I've talked to Mark and John Colclasher at CSF about this. I love the succinctness of our language in it, because our ballot language is the same as our amendment language, and Florida is famous for having these confusing amendments. And where you take two just disparate ideas and tie them together and it gets confusing, you don't know what way to vote. This is like clean and clear, despite the misinformation campaign. When you walk up there and read it, it's like, do you want to ride a fishing hunt? Yes or no? And that's exactly like what the amendment language itself is. So I'm really proud of that. I really think we landed in a good spot.
And again, going back to one of your early points is in the myth v fiction, that this does not take away the authority of season setting, bag limits, rulemaking from the commission. That still happens. So some people hear right to hunt and fish. They think, oh, it's 24/7, 365, 366 every 4 years that you can go out and hunt and fish. Like, no, that would be contrary to what we're trying to do and be the antithesis of sound wildlife management and science-based wildlife management. So that is not happening. Just want to put that back out there.
Yeah, I don't know any hunter that wants to shoot the last deer, the last rabbit, the last squirrel. I don't know any fisherman wants to catch the last redfish. Like, we need those species to exist so we can continue to do this. That's a little bit of a disconnect, because we see that too in the conversation out there. Well, they just want to shoot all the deer. They just want to shoot all the turkeys or whatever. I don't know any sportsman out there that wants to shoot the last one. Like, we want those animals. And that's, you guys have talked about this before. I've listened on your podcast before about the North American model of conservation. Like, that's central to that idea, and that's the antithesis of conservation and the antithesis of what we're trying to do with this.
Yeah. And from a personal standpoint, you're the only place I can go to get my Osceola, which I've yet to get to complete my turkey slam. So I definitely don't want to see them all go away. And where you all only had a 1-day redfish season in 2024, that's also problematic. I'd like to see those numbers come back up there. So we don't want to catch them all. Subtler differences there that, Chris Horton's covered, but hopefully more movement specifically on redfish seasons.
The red snapper on the Atlantic coast. Red snapper. Had a 1-day season this year. That was like,
right.
Was the and usually on that 1 day when we get it, it's like, you ever see that movie, The Perfect Storm, with Mark Wahlberg and George Clooney? The weather is usually exactly like that on the 1 day of that season every year.
That's the northern in me coming out. Sorry on the confusion. It's a red snapper, redfish, 2 different fish for my fellow above the Mason-Dixon line folks that don't get it. I digress. So this goes our way, right? We get what we want. The people in Florida get the right to hunt and fish passed. Starting November 6th, what is the process? How soon does that take to get the Constitution of Florida
Travis,
amended?
correct me if I'm wrong.
When does it
takes
take effect
immediately, right?
Yeah, so the right would take effect immediately. And this should not require an implementing bill, because we have the constitutionally created agency. There might be some cleanup legislatively, but we really don't have much in the tune of legislation that would have to reflect this.
Fantastic. No, hopefully that's great news. And certainly we'll do a post-mortem on this one way or the other. Hopefully we got something to celebrate here in the coming days, and we'll circle back with you and Mark, Travis, to go over this. But before we cut you both loose, give you opportunity for parting thoughts, aside from the obvious, go vote. Mark, we'll start with you, and we'll let Travis close it out.
Yeah, just as you said, Fred, we'll need folks to get out and vote. Hopefully vote for Amendment 2. If you're still on the fence about it, CSF has a lot of good resources to go back to better inform your decision. I mean, we just sent out action alerts to 250,000 plus hunting license holders in the state of Florida, kind of dispelling some of the myths that Travis touched on earlier. So I encourage folks to look at that, look at our website, look at Travis's website with All Florida, and talk to a lot of those guys that are boots on the ground down there, like Travis and Mike Elfenbein and Captain Dylan Hubbard and a lot of those other in-state guys that are doing a lot of good work advocating for the rights of sportsmen and women in the state of Florida.
Yeah, that was a good list. The only ones I'd add to that is also CCA Florida, Trip Artman there, and also ASA. Martha Guys and Gary Jennings at ASA have been just like rock stars on this entire process for us, good partners. But yeah, to me, that's it exactly, Mark. Getting out and voting is it exactly. The other thing I'd say is we tend to want to talk about sexier issues a lot of times when it comes to election season. This is a really important issue, and it touches all of us that have a fishing license, hunting license, care about conservation. So the other thing, if you're listening to this and you have a connection to somebody in Florida, pick up the phone and call them and tell them about it, because when you have this many issues stacking the ballot as we do, from, like you mentioned, presidential, federal, all the House judges, all the way down the ballot, you end up with kind of a messy ballot, and some people can get confused, they get ballot fatigue. So we're telling people, tell everybody from your Sunday school teacher to your bank teller to the cashier at Publix, vote yes on Amendment 2. It's the simplest thing on the ballot. It's the safest thing on the ballot. It's easy to do, and that's the true grassroots efforts that we've been trying to conduct down here. Is the real conversations. You can get on the internet and argue with people all day, but when you go stop somebody at Home Depot and say, "Hey, man, I noticed your bumper sticker, or I noticed, your Salt Life shirt or whatever. You fish, you hunt," and you strike up a conversation, you won't find anybody that says no to it. You just won't, and that's how you create that awareness campaign, and you really can move people on it. So appreciate you guys having me on and letting us talk about this, and vote yes on too.
Yeah, fantastic work, Travis. Thanks so much for your thoughts and the partnership and the leadership on the ground there. And then I will leave the audience with this again, especially those of you in Florida, is that, and we've talked about this, is hunting as the preferred method of wildlife sound science-based wildlife management. That's across the whole country to include Florida. Hunters, anglers have a place in that. And if you're the 80% that are just completely indifferent to our community, you could care less. But we need your vote too. We need you to vote yes on this, because with the work we do through our recreation, through our dollars that fund that American system of conservation funding, that's for everybody. That's not just for us, the active participants. So if you like going on airboat rides and looking at alligators and looking at spoonbills and all the cool animals and fauna and flora down there that are very unique to that state, you can thank a fisherman, you can thank a hunter and a trapper, because on the back of a few, we're providing for the many, and gladly so. So it takes all of us. So we'll take our chunk of people, and we'll take that 80% for a yes to, and then just do it overwhelmingly. Gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. And like I said, go vote. We'll see you guys hopefully with some good news in the coming days and weeks. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us, Fred.
Thank you again to our guests. Definitely longer than our typical Sportsman's Voice Roundup, but necessary, right? I mean, there's some great stuff here, information-wise, process-wise, like just everything. I think that any question you would have, if you're in Colorado, if you're in Florida, or if you're kicking around ideas like bringing a right to hunt and fish amendment to your state, like there's good information here that will apply long after November 5th. And then certainly what's going on in Colorado is not not going to end next week. Good, bad, or indifferent, this thing is going to keep cropping its head up, probably in Colorado, but definitely parts in between the oceans. We said it before. Normally, West Coast, East Coast, Northeast, Northwest, this stuff is perennial, but it's definitely moving inward, and you are seeing these attacks throughout. So it's not relegated to our two north corners. It's not relegated it's unique to Colorado, New Mexico. This stuff is happening all over and will be. So cautionary tales here in Colorado. Again, hopefully by next roundup, we'll have some good news to report on, and we'll circle back with Dan and Barry on that. Talk about what worked, what could have been improved, so on and so on, that, you can take that information into the next session when inevitably, like I said, the stuff is going to pop up again. And then same thing in Florida. Hopefully we got good news. As you heard, should that pass in Florida, it takes effect immediately. That's fantastic. So no wait period, no process period. I think as he Travis said there, a constitutionally created agency, they just make it happen, which is really neat and good. So again, call to action, get up and vote. And again, early voting is happening in both states, in Colorado and Florida. And heck, if you're any of the other 48 states and they have that opportunity to early vote as your civic duty, just go do it. Just don't wait till Tuesday if you don't have to. Again, we're talking weather. We're getting into the later part of fall. We're not very far from the beginning of winter. So, those of us in the northern tier of the country, like, don't risk it on a crazy ice storm or freezing rain or a friggin' snowstorm. Like, if you look at the 7-day, man, that's how we did it. Look at the 7-day in Denver. Like, hey, man, it's probably going to be a little, touch and go inclement weather on election day in Denver. But you got the whole rest of this week and Monday that looked pretty nice. Go take care of it. Why stand in the line if you do not have to? Take advantage of the system that we have that is available to you now. And go find Prop 127, vote that sucker down, and then go find Amendment 2 and vote that sucker in. Make that happen. And if you got any other issues going on in your states, be attentive to them. Don't get that ballot fatigue. I know. It's tough to look at those things and just see all that small print and everything starts. Shoot, it's like one of them. If you grew up in the late 80s and 90s, they had them stupid pictures. If you crossed your eyes, and the T-Rex jumped out at you. That's what these things look like. There's so much small text, and they all start melding together. You wait for something to pop out, and the only thing that pops out is your brain, because you're like, there's so much going on. There's just, again, I'm getting fatigued talking about it. Go in with what you know. Scout it out. A lot of your local municipalities, I know mine's already sent it out. They posted on their Facebook site what the ballot looks like. Go scout it. Go find these issues that are important to you, and do the homework on it. Don't just go in there uninformed and just checking yes or no, or just doing straight, party line thing. Like, if nothing else, that this show, I think, has harped on pretty well, and our organization has done a damn good job of, especially with our issues. They're not partisan. So it's not, these things don't fit into a tidy little box. So if you're going to, vote a straight line ticket, that's your right, that's your thing, but you could be missing out on someone on the other side that's really supportive of our issues, if that's important to you. Again, these are all personal choices, and what happens in the voting booth is private and is for you, but consider it that these people are human. I think we've illustrated that very well on this show, and we'll continue to do so. They're both sides, that especially what we work with and have demonstrated, care very much about these issues. So take care, exercise your right, and be informed on what you're doing. Don't let someone tell you what to do. Take it upon yourself. Be responsible for your vote. It's unique. Not everyone gets to do it the way we do it. And anyway, that's my soapbox. Sorry for the long out here. It's very important, and we need you. We need all of you in the sporting community to show up. And then, like I said, those of you that are just could care less or indifferent, or you get those people are in your ecosystem, bring them. Say, hey, man, I know you don't care about this, but you'd be doing me a solid to vote this. Here's why. I just said, don't tell people how to vote, but give them the why. Let them ask questions, and then provide them this program. And here's some answers. And let reason and common sense rule the day, ideally. Anyway, that's our show for this week. No feature. Enjoy the weekend. Yeah, man. Next time we connect, we're going to be on the other side of election 2024. Hopefully we'll know a lot of things. That would be great. We got our wrap up next Wednesday and feature podcast presentation. We back to North Carolina, revisit Childress Vineyards and Wine, Wheels, and Wildlife event. Got some nice interviews, some fun interviews, and thoughts and sounds from that event. And Yeah, and then we're steaming towards the end of the year and then getting through these hunting seasons. So be safe out there, be well, go vote. See you next time. Bye. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.